Yo, what's good? My name is Vivianne and welcome to Real Talk. And this is a brief segment on the Choose Couraging podcast where we answer real questions from people building things or from folks who are thinking about it and answer questions from inside the mess of entrepreneurship, okay? So no hustle hype, no polished, I figured it all out stories. Sometimes these questions are things that y'all send to us. Sometimes these are questions that we're asking ourselves right now. Either way, this isn't about doing business right. It's about doing it with courage, with clarity, and with care. So if you're navigating uncertainty, if you are rewriting the rules that you have been handed, that have been passed down to you, or maybe you're just quietly wondering if there's another way to build, earn, and live, then you're in the right place. Today, I'm joined by my friend and fellow entrepreneur, Vincent, and we're going to get into it. All right, our question for today is, what do you say to designers who feel like they're too deep in to change anything now? And I really like this question. I feel like it's one that I've been talking to a couple folks about this past week. And I usually start those conversations by gently reminding them that you're not too deep in. You're just very practiced at surviving what you're in. Ooh. And
Mm,
that can span into a lot of our areas of life, just being very practiced at surviving what we're in. Because I feel like when someone says to me that, I'm too deep in, what they often mean is that I've invested years here, or people depend on me, so they're kind of feeling that weight, or I don't know who I am outside of this role or outside of this industry, or, if I change now, I'll have to admit that something didn't work, right? And I think when I hear those kinds of kind of like inner turmoil moments, that's more about attachment to me than being necessarily like too deep in. And attachment for me, like it makes sense when your identity, safety, and self-worth are all tied to a system that rewarded that level of endurance. But I think what a lot of designers don't hear enough is that your experience is actually compounding, it's growing, it's evolving, it's building on itself. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it expires. It means that you can pivot that into something else, right? Because you don't lose your design intuition just because you're no longer, having a title at a company of designer. Like you don't lose your strategic thinking, your taste, your leadership just because you shift directions. Like those things travel with you. Those things pivot with you. What you might lose though is familiarity. And while that's uncomfortable, like it's not fatal. It won't be the end all be all.
yeah, for sure. I also hear when I hear this is hearing that the exit I can't imagine doesn't look good enough to justify the loss.
Oh,
Right. And and what this is starting to get at is the this loss aversion, right? Where we tend to, you know, weigh losses roughly twice as heavily as equivalent gains, right? And so with that, it becomes this calculation that is not quite accurate to what could possibly be attained in pivoting or in switching. You know, a way in which to even reframe it, and how sometimes I look at this sort of framing or reframing when thinking, oh, it too deep in, is to consider the fact that the however many years, the 5 years, the 10 years, the 15 years, they're already spent regardless of what you do next. You know, the question isn't so much about how should I, or should I abandon those years, those 5 years or those 10 years, because you really can't. They're done. They're spent, right? The question is, what do I want the next 5, 10, or 15 years to look like? And it's it again to think about the idea of be too deep in is really just running back to this idea of this, this cost calculation deficit where the past simply just can't be optimized. You
Mhm.
can't optimize that, but you could only looking at the future and optimizing how you're going to take that very next step.
Yeah. I like what you said of imagining what the next 15 years could look like. And it reminds me of good friend Michael Davis. And I remember him challenging me once of, so I want you to focus more on how you want the future to feel.
That's good.
And I've been thinking about that lately. My partner the other day, I sent him this LinkedIn post and I was like, hey, take a look at this. I think it's really interesting. And he was like, oh, I don't have LinkedIn, so I can't open it. And I was like, I don't think I've ever had such like a flash of jealousy like that. And ever since that conversation with him, I've been like, man, like, what would it look like? What would my life feel like if I was able to be more off LinkedIn? And for me, like, I was having these images in my mind of just being more in my books, like being able to walk to the local market and being outside more, spending more time with my friends and my suegros and whatnot. And I was like, that's a feeling anchor. And I'm like, and really at the heart of that was like, I want more peace. Like, I want more
Yeah.
like joy. I want more. Yeah, I want more, and it's not more crap, it's not more stuff, it's not more
Right.
Gucci or, like, things, like, it
Right.
is more presence. Like, it's more connection with myself and with things that actually, like, matter to me, and I think what it brings up for me in this is, like, this idea of, "Oh, like, I'm worried that I'm too deep in," the sunken cost fallacy. It's more of a nervous system statement than anything else, especially, like, when you're exhausted. A lot of things feel irreversible. Like, your imagination shrinks, your creativity to see what else is possible, like, shrinks, and I think what that is more so is when I hear people kinda say things, like, around the realm of sunken cost fallacy, "I've invested too much, I'm too deep in," that's more of their depletion speaking than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's it's also one of the things that I kind of want to circle back to that I've experienced, when I have shared that with myself in terms of telling myself I was too deep in my career to make a pivot is that I had intertwined my identity to the things that I was doing,
Mm,
right? And so your identity isn't a cage and it wrapped up in the work that you do. It's your identity is essentially a map, where it's not about you living in the narrative, oh, I built my entire personal brand around this particular niche, or everyone knows me professionally as doing this, being this kind of designer. Really to step out of that is to really embrace this word that we use oftentimes, which is growth mindset. We use that in design all the time. Embrace growth mindset, but really the deeper insight is about, what happens when identity and circumstance become fused, right? When you've been a certain thing for long enough and leaving it does feel like a self-erasure in some regards rather than self-revision, which is the hope and the aspiration that, we should be striving for as designers. You know, and as you mentioned earlier too, your identity and who you are, what you've done is durable and is transferable. The designer who spent 8 years in fintech doesn't lose that expertise when they pivot to health tech or something completely different. They bring that as context, right? The in-house designer who goes freelance, you're not starting over, right? You're just leveraging everything that you've built over those years and you're applying it into something else, right? And so really I would, ask a designer who might be in thinking it like this, is what parts of how you work, not where you work or for whom you work for, are you proud of? Who who essentially are you? And I go a step deeper in asking yourself, who are you outside of design?
Yeah. Yeah, and for folks who are listening, this isn't necessarily an invitation to blow up your careers. It's more of there's an opportunity here for you to experiment with your own agency again. And so change doesn't necessarily come from quitting, but it actually comes more from a set of micro choices.
Yes.
Things like, deciding to stop over functioning and seeing what actually breaks.
Yeah.
Naming like a boundary and holding it for just a month. Taking a real break, whether you're taking short-term medical leave, you're taking a couple weeks off, whatever that may be, not to necessarily recover, but to just listen. Like sometimes we just need space to think and
Yeah.
listen to ourselves, right?
Mhm.
It's about, maybe even just doing one small thing that reintroduces curiosity instead of this kind of like dopamine hit laden journey of seeking approval and competence. Even like I have like a group coaching experience that I offer to help folks really provide like a container and space for folks who are wanting to get curious about how to take an idea and turn it into a business and, actually like launch something. But what it really is speaking to is this understanding that depth without direction is just inertia.
Yeah. Mm.
That's like you need direction, you need some positioning in there as well.
Yep.
Because while staying is a choice, leaving is also a choice. Changing how you stay is also a choice. So agency is dripping all around us, right? But we have to aim it in a direction that we know will better serve us, our loved ones, and people that we care about in the life that we actually want to live. And so, yeah, you're not behind.
No.
And again, I even have these feelings still of I feel like
Mhm.
I'm behind. I feel like there's more I could be doing, ways I could be catching up. But I also have to remind myself like I'm not behind, like I'm not late. I more times than not, I'm just finding myself at the point where endurance has taught me everything it can be, but now I need to discern what's next.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And really, it's about taking that one small action towards the direction that you want to go because movement creates new information that standing still never can.
That part.
Right.
So, like, I feel what I'm recognizing, with clients, people I talk to, is really just how deep learned helplessness is. Sometimes I'll have people come to me and, hey, how do I address this problem? And I'm like, well, what have you tried on your own first? And we just look at each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what breaks my heart the most about a lot of corporate experiences is it puts people into this state of perpetual helplessness. And they don't
Yeah.
realize that they are so freaking talented,
Mm.
intelligent, capable, and they can figure things out and do great things. And so I think it's about in those moments where you quickly are telling yourself, I can't do this, this can't be done. It's taking a moment to pause and being like, well, who told me that? One. And two, what have I even done to prove that person wrong?
It goes right back to what we were talking about before and earlier about, reclaiming your agency. And those designers who are able to reclaim their agency are usually the ones who've decided that uncertainty in motion is better than certainty in place. It's not to say that you're gonna have all of the answers as you're moving. You may not. The likelihood of you having that is very slim. But being able to move with that uncertainty, you are able to start getting more clarity and understanding on which directions you should be moving, which turns should you be making next. Because the ideal scenario that we all have is that we want to know all of the turns that we need to make between where we are to where we're going. And the reality is that in the movement, in the motion, that's when you'll get the GPS signal of turn left. It hit, in 1.2 miles. And sometimes having that type of direction in the motion is better than having it in a time where you are sitting still or standing still, where everything is in a position that feels comfortable, right? Because the inertia and the traction that you gain as you're in motion, you're also picking up skills and understanding that you did not have before you actually started the journey.
And so for today, we'll gift you with a couple gifts today to help you on this path of making moves and actually shifting closer to clarity and confidence. The first one is it's actually a revisit from episode 19 on this podcast, where I did an episode on how to audit your life before it falls apart. And really, the purpose of this workbook is to help you audit your life before it falls apart with some simple exercises that I've used personally to spot misalignment, to break free from golden handcuffs, and to reclaim my agency. So I will drop the link to that in the show notes for you to sign up for and enjoy. And the other activity and workbook that I've designed for you as well is an exercise in experimenting. And it's around how to prototype your purpose in 30 days. And this comes from episode 23 on the Choose Courage Inc. podcast. Really, at the heart of it is how to stop waiting to quote unquote find your purpose and instead to start prototyping it. I give you a 30-day framework that gives you simple experiments to uncover what energizes you, what drains you, and what actually feels aligned. So I hope you dive into these workbooks, these gifts as a way and a signal for you to choose you and to choose courage over comfort. Thanks for hanging out with us and diving into some of these real and unfiltered conversations. We know your time is valuable, and so we don't take it for granted. If today's episode made you think, if it challenged you, or gave you something new to consider, we'd love for you to hit that follow button on whatever streaming service you're using. That way, you'll never miss an episode when we drop them. And if you want to go even deeper, sign up for our newsletter at choosecourageinc.com, and you'll get updates on new episodes, access to exclusive freebies, and first dibs on coaching opportunities and other resources to help you make bold moves in your life and business. So we appreciate you, we see you, and we're rooting for you. Until next time, keep choosing courage over comfort, and a friendly reminder to drink some water.